We're back for another week of breakdown and predictions. This week we got a UFC pay-per-view. We got UFC 296, the last event of the year for the UFC, and we got a pretty good one, man. We got a main event that has been a fight people have been anticipating for a long time. I mean, Leon Edwards, Colby Covington, they've been around the top of welterweight division for years now, and they've been linked together, talked about each other, fighting each other. So finally going to go down. We're going to see how these two actually match up in the cage. And besides that, we got a lot of other great fights. We got the co-main event, another title fight there with Pantoja and Brandon Royval, which is another rematch, but high-level fight. So definitely excited to break down this full fight card. And just before we get started, I want to talk about patreon.com/MMAPredictionGuru. If you want to go over there, you can get access to all my bets for this UFC card and all my bets for other promotions for the rest of the year, because there is going to be some other shows that are going on outside the UFC that are going to be Patreon exclusive. So if you want access to content like that, then definitely got to go to Patreon and check it out. Help support the channel and help make yourself some money. And yeah, man, hit the like button on this video. Put some comments down below. Let's try to get some engagement on it. I would really appreciate it. And let's get started on this first fight right here with Muslim Salikhov taking on Randy Brown. Fight I'm not really too interested in. I mean, I feel like it's two fighters that are kind of getting a little bit past it. Randy Brown, he got that win over Wellington Turman, his last fight, but I didn't necessarily think he looked that good in that fight. It seemed like, to me, he's kind of slowing down a little bit. He's only 33, but I feel like he's not necessarily making improvements. He's taking a lot of damage throughout his career. And Muslim Salikhov, 39 years old, so definitely kind of getting towards the end of his career. He had a long career in kickboxing before he even came to MMA as well, so he's had a lot of miles. And you look at him, he's lost 2 out of 3 where he got hit hard by Li Jingliang, who hits like a truck, got knocked out. And I think that's the only time he's ever been knocked out before, so he's a pretty durable guy. And then Nicholas Dalby just did what Nicholas Dalby does and kind of wore on him, forward pressure, took him down and beat him up. But with this fight, it's probably going to be more of a distance striking fight, which is the type of fight that Salikhov likes. And I do think Salikhov's a little bit more technical of a striker, but ultimately, I'm going to go with the younger guy in Randy Brown. I think the reach is going to be potentially a difference in the fight. And neither guy I could trust that much. I feel like it's closer to a 50-50-ish type of fight, but Randy Brown to me is the better grappler. He's better in the clinch. He's probably a little bit more athletic, and I think his length is going to be a big advantage. Cardio as well, I think, is on the side of Randy Brown. So I'm going to slightly give the fight to Randy Brown, but it's not a fight I'm too interested in. I don't think either fighter is that trustworthy. So give me Randy Brown, but probably a pass betting-wise, at least if you ask me. And up next here, we got a heavyweight fight. We got Shamil Gaziev, who's making his UFC debut. He's taking on Martin Buday, who has done really well in the UFC. I mean, he's 4-0 so far, so he's looking to move to 5-0, maybe get into the rankings. And for Gaziev, he's 11-0 before coming in the UFC, so he's done really well, and that's why he's been able to get this fight right away. But style-wise, you look at Gaziev, he's very aggressive. He comes forward, he throws some pretty nice straight punches, good uppercuts. He has solid hand speed for heavyweight and big power. And seems like he doesn't really respect his opponents a lot, so he'll eat shots. He has been dropped. He's a hittable guy, but if he can connect, he usually can knock his opponents out or hurt them. He has been dropping guys and knocking them out early in the first round in a lot of his recent fights. And I would say Gaziev is the more technical striker overall, but neither guy is going to blow you away with their striking technique. And Gaziev, he has questionable cardio. I feel like Buday is a little bit more composed in there and can kind of fight longer. And Gaziev's heavy on that lead leg. He's also there to be hit with counter hooks. So I think there's some things that Buday could potentially do well. But Gaziev does have good wrestling too. He can push guys against the cage. He can chain wrestle. I think he has a big advantage in the clinch wrestling. I do feel like Buday could struggle a little bit with his clinch wrestling against the cage and just be held against the fence. But I do think he's going to struggle to take Buday down because you look at it, he's been fighting a lot of small heavyweights recently. Guys that probably aren't heavyweight, that are just kind of bloated up middleweights or light heavyweights. So now he's fighting a guy that's 266 pounds. So it's a big difference. It's going to be a lot more taxing and tough to take him down, at least if you ask me. And but if Gaziev can hold him against the fence and eventually get him down, he is aggressive. He has heavy top pressure. He can rain down some punches. But when he gets tired, you know, he could start to make mistakes on the ground and lose position. We saw in one of his fights where it went to decision, he got swept a couple times with a Kimura. And you look at Martin Buday, that's something that he hit in his last fight. So something to kind of think about. But with Martin Buday, he's slower heavyweight, but has good composure. He'll pop the jab, the left hook, and then try to sneak in counter hooks on the inside. But just doesn't really stand out. He's just huge, durable, effective with his pressure. Tries to clinch, dirty box. And defensively, he's there to be hit, but it seems like he has a good chin. He's never been finished in his career, so seems like he deals with power pretty well. But if he gets clipped clean by Gaziev, it is heavyweight, and we could see him go down. But I feel like if he can get out of that first round, he could maybe start to take over on the feet. I think low kicks, he could use those and just try to stay steady and fight how he usually does. And then those counter hooks could maybe start to land, and you could start to get Gaziev a little tired. And you look at his last fight, he was really aggressive. He got on top, got that Kimura. And I don't necessarily think that he's going to be able to take Gaziev down, but if he could make it hard for Gaziev to take him down and show his cardio, I think he could end up being the guy that wins it at the end. And it's a close fight. I feel like it could go either way. I think it's a dog or pass if you're looking at it from a betting perspective, but pure pick, I'm going to go with the UFC veteran. I feel like Gaziev, if he connects early, he might knock Buday out, but Buday's never been finished. He has more experience. I think he has the better gas tank, composure. Gaziev's been fighting a lot of smaller opponents too, so that's kind of factoring in for me. I feel like Gaziev may start well, get a takedown or two, but I think Buday's experience is going to take over, so I'm going to predict him to win a decision or finish in like the later rounds, but dog or pass for me either way, just because I feel like Gaziev has the finishing upside, and it's a fairly close fight, so 2-1, I wouldn't lay that on Buday, but now I'm seeing the lines coming in like way closer, so Buday becomes an underdog, then I think he would be the side. So kind of that's how I'm seeing the fight, but as a pure pick, I'm going to go with Buday just because I trust him to do better if the fight goes later. And this next fight, we got another fight that in my opinion is kind of a total pass fight because you look at it, skills perspective-wise, experience-wise, I think Fili has a big advantage. He has better stand-up technically, in my opinion, really nice straight punches, good head kick, good in the fire. He is aggressive, but it's just he's been in the game for a long time. It seems like he gets rocked and dropped and hurt in a lot of his fights. And Lucas Almeida is a guy that comes in, throws heavy punches. So for Fili, I think the path of least resistance would be to use that double and hold him down, which I think he could do. This could even be a guy he could sub. He hasn't had a sub in I don't even know, but I think Almeida has a big deficiency on the ground. So personally, I feel like that would be an easy way to win. But Fili is a crowd pleaser, and if he keeps it standing, then he's giving Almeida a chance to land that big left hook or a big punch and knock him out, hurt him. And Almeida has the power to do that. So it's just like I feel like Fili could run away with it. He could beat him on the feet, beat him on the ground, cruise, knock him out, submit him, win by decision. Or he could be winning the whole fight and get knocked out. So to me, when you got Fili as the favorite in this type of scenario, got to kind of pass. But I think Fili is going to win the fight. Personally, I just feel like he's too skilled for Almeida. He'll be able to mix it up, and he'll be able to win this one. So give me Andre Fili, but I just don't trust his chin enough to bet him or kind of pick him super confidently. And this next fight, Dustin Jacoby taking on Alonzo Menifield, kind of a similar scenario to the last fight where I feel like you look at both these guys on paper, I think Dustin Jacoby has a big advantage at range. You could just pick them apart, piece them up, kind of use that distance as kicks. I think his kicks could be a big factor. Front kicks to the body, leg kicks. Menifield's really heavy on that lead leg. And also, Jacoby has that ability. I mean, he's shown it multiple times, one-punch knockouts where he catches guys with that timing coming in and knocks them out. And we've seen Alonzo Menifield against OSP, which is kind of the only good striker that he's fought in the UFC. He got beat up with the kicks on the outside a little bit, got impatient, ran inside, closed the distance, and got caught and knocked out. So I definitely think Jacoby has a chance to catch him coming in clean with a big shot. But you look at Menifield, he's explosive, has power. He has confidence right now. He's been doing well. He hasn't lost in quite a while. And if he can land one of those big shots on Jacoby, he could maybe hurt him. I feel like Jacoby, his chin is going a little bit. He's been getting dropped and hurt in these fights. He's been fighting like high-level power punchers, and he's been able to not get finished either. So I definitely think that he's still tough, but I wouldn't be shocked if Menifield just knocked him out. But I think skill-wise on the feet, Jacoby has him covered pretty majorly. And then Menifield maybe could take him down and beat him that way, but Menifield's only had more than one takedown in one UFC fight of his, I believe. And Jacoby has improved his wrestling, grappling defense, I believe, pretty significantly. So I think that Jacoby has this fight covered and should get the victory, but Menifield does have that knockout chance. But give me Jacoby for the win. I think he'll win, actually, via knockout at some point during the fight. And this next one, we got a good fight right here. I feel like close fight, kind of going under the radar a little bit with some other fights on this card. But Ariane Lipski taking on Casey O'Neill. And Casey O'Neill, she made a return from ACL surgery her last fight, fought Jennifer Maia, and took the first loss of her career. So 9 months later, she's coming back out here in kind of a crossroads fight, because if she wants to stay in the title picture, she definitely needs to win here. And I do believe even in a loss, I did see improvements in O'Neill after the layoff. Her head movement, striking defense looked better than in previous fights. She was throwing more jabs, cleaner, straighter punches. And she only knows one way out of fight, though, and that's all-out aggression, forward pressure. She walks you down. She tries to get into the back you up, get in the clinch, take you down, and really just trying to push the pace and be aggressive. But you saw in her last fight, she really struggled to get much going because her opponent was able to use faster feet, feints, footwork, and just kind of piece her up. And I feel like if O'Neill can't get it to the ground, it's going to be a similar situation in this fight with Ariane Lipski. And you look at Casey O'Neill, I do think she's good in the clinch. She likes to pressure girls to the cage, body lock them, double leg them. I don't think her wrestling in general is the greatest, but her cardio and her tenacity kind of makes up for her deficiencies there, and she can get on top. She's very aggressive. She could finish fights. Good ground and pound, decent submission game. Her takedown defense has improved, so I don't even expect Lipsy to take her down, but O'Neill has improved her takedown defense, and her cardio is probably her best asset, so I do think that she's someone that's going to push the pace and really fight hard for your money. But you look at Ariane Lipski, I mean, she entered the UFC with a lot of hype, and she was 2-4, but she's 3-1 in her last 4 fights now, and kind of turned her UFC career around after a lot of people fell off and gave up on her. She moved to American Top Team, and she really has made a lot of improvements since moving over there. She's once again the underdog for this fight, so we're going to see if she can upset the apple cart again here, as she's won as the underdog in her last 2 fights. And you look at Ariane Lipski, she's powerful for the weight class. I would say she's one of the more dangerous strikers in the division. Good distance control, but she brings the pressure. Great jab, good right hand. She throws 1-2s, nice right hooks, nice overhand rights. She'll throw really nasty hook combinations. She'll go to the body, good knees. And she's just mean in there. She's no problem exchanging in the pocket. Real nice counter left hook. She'll throw a jab leg kick or a straight right leg kick combination. So she mixes her and kicks well. She has a lot better kicks than Casey O'Neill. Good round kicks to the body. and she throws a high volume out there. So that's always good to see. Defensively, she is there to be hit, but I do feel like she could take shots to give shots, and she usually is the more powerful fighter. And I think if they get in exchanges, I feel like Lipski is going to be the better striker, and she's going to hit harder. And Ariane Lipski's grappling and wrestling is what has cost her the most in her UFC career. She's been finished with ground and pound twice. She got controlled for almost 5 minutes in her decision loss to Joanne Calderwood. And recently, though, her takedown defenses look great. She's really worked hard on defending takedowns, and that was evident against Melissa Gatto and J.J. Aldridge. J.J. Aldridge was 0 for 12 on takedowns against Lipski. I mean, J.J. Aldridge is a girl that's taken down Erin Blanchfield, that's taken down a lot of recent fighters, and Ariane Lipski was able to totally shut that down. She had Melissa Gatto go 0 for 7 against her on takedowns, who's another girl that's a pretty decent grappler. Someone that took down, I believe, Tracy Cortez. And Lipski, she's really strong in the clinch, and I think she can make it really difficult for Casey to get takedowns if she even gets any at all. And, I mean, let's go to her dead to rights. She had great timing on a few takedowns, and Lipski still was able to get to the cage and defend them. So, unless O'Neal could time and takedown right in the center of the cage, I don't really see her taking Lipski down. And I just feel like Lipski is probably going to be able to get it done here. I mean, I feel like if O'Neal can't get it to the ground, Lipski's going to look like a big favorite. And recently, Lipski's been really hard to take down. And I don't think O'Neal is like a high-level wrestler. The only thing is, it's just O'Neal is relentless. And Lipski has shown quit before when she actually has faced adversity and gotten put on her back. So if O'Neal can get her there, I'm a little worried O'Neal could finish her. But if she can keep it standing like she has in her recent fights, I think she'll win going away. So give me Ariane Lipski as the underdog for this one, and I'm going to say she gets the job done here via decision. And in this next fight, we got a fight that I have really no interest in with Brian Kelleher taking on Cody Garbrandt. Two guys that are kind of damaged goods in my opinion, and they're both fan favorites. They're fighters that, you know, I think have put on great performances, that I appreciate what they've done in the cage, but just at this point, it's like Brian Kelleher, 37-year-old bantamweight, coming back from like a 1.5 year long layoff where he had back surgery, I believe, or some significant surgery where it seemed like he was going to be done with his UFC career, and he's made a comeback now, so no idea how he's going to come back and look, and that's on top of his last 2 fights. He's gotten kind of squashed early and been non-competitive, so to trust him is kind of like, I don't know. But then you're looking at Cody Garbrandt, and he obviously has that chin issue. Did come back and beat Trevin Jones, but I feel like he didn't look the greatest in that fight. Really gun-shy, used a lot of wrestling. Kelleher has that guillotine. Maybe you could find something if Cody gets frantic with the wrestling and Kelleher can put that pressure on him, but I just don't know how Kelleher is going to look either. At least Cody doesn't have any I think he has injuries too, but I don't think he had anything like as severe as Kelleher. He's 5 years younger, so I'm going to say he uses his speed advantage and maybe gets a takedown or two and wins a decision here. But I mean, man, you can't have any confidence in Cody Garbrandt either, in my opinion. He hasn't fought in a while himself. It hasn't been a year yet, but it's been, 10 months, 9 months. And I just feel like he didn't look good in that last fight, and before that he was on a long losing streak as well. So pick your poison in this one, but I feel like Garbrandt, obviously, he's achieved much better things in the sport. He has been fighting a lot higher level guys. Most of his losses have been in the best of the best. So I'll say Garbrandt wins a decision in this one. And coming up next year, we got Karol Rosa. She's taking on Irene Aldana. And really fun fight here. I mean, I feel like Karol Rosa, she's kind of been in kind of no man's land a little bit recently, where she has had these opponents that haven't really moved her up or down in the weight class, like Lena Landsberg, kind of a nothing burger of a fight for her, Yana Santos, and then moved up to 145, took the loss in that one, but now she's finally getting a chance to kind of progress and take a big step up because she's taking on Irene Aldana, who just in her last fight fought for the belt. So if she could beat Aldana, it's going to put her in great position in a weight class that doesn't have a champion right now. So even for Aldana as well, I mean, this is kind of her last opportunity. 35 years old, just coming off a loss in a title fight. If she wants to ever get another title shot, she has to win this fight, probably win it in impressive fashion, and be able to move on to bigger things, probably win another fight, and then maybe get a title shot. But interesting matchup because I do feel like both these girls pose issues for each other. I mean, you look at Irene Aldana, I feel like she's one of the most dangerous strikers in the weight class. She's one of the few girls that could actually get knockouts. Obviously, I mean, you look at that knockout with Macy Chiasson, that was kind of a little bit of a fluky knockout, but the Ketla Vieira knockout, the knockout with Yana Santos, those are pretty legit. And you definitely see when she can land that left hook or she can land her right hand clean, she has power and decent boxing. But it seems like Aldana, her speed is kind of gone a little bit away at this point. I feel like she has lowered her volume quite a bit due to that. And her defense has always never been the greatest either. So she's there to be hit, but it's just she can crack you really good, and she's usually the more athletic girl of the two, more powerful, and she can get away with taking damage. But Karol Rosa, she's someone that comes forward and kind of brings a war, but she's a little bit plotty, and early in fights she can get cracked, and that's where Aldana is going to have a chance to maybe knock her out. I mean, we saw Lena Landsberg drop Karol Rosa with a left hook, so if Lena Landsberg could drop her, then maybe Irene could knock her out with that same punch. So, but I do feel like Rosa's going to be throwing more volume out there. She can compete on the feet herself, and if she can get takedowns, she could look like a big favorite, and I do feel like she could get the fight to the ground, and she's going to be the more aggressive girl. And 35 years old, Irene is getting up there at this point. I feel like her fight with Macy, she was on her way to losing that fight before kind of got that lucky finish. And then she was able to fight Amanda Nunes and take the loss there. But if you look at her fights, I mean, her win over Yana Santos was over 2 years ago at this point. So time's kind of flying by for her. I mean, she didn't fight for 9 months after the Chiasson fight, waiting to fight Amanda, and then hasn't fought for 6 months since then. So she's aged a little bit, I feel like. So I think that Karol Rosa is a big underdog. I don't understand that line. I feel like it's close to a 50-50 fight. Like I said, I think Aldana could do damage early or maybe even get the finish, but Rosa's going to be more impactful throughout the whole fight, and I think that she could have a big advantage in the wrestling and the grappling. I will say Aldana's get-ups and her submission game is getting more and more dangerous. I mean, you could see that Diego Lopez effect is helping her out, but she still gives her back, and I feel like Karol Rosa can win the grappling exchanges. So I'm going to go with the younger, fresher girl, in my opinion at least, in Karol Rosa, and say that she mixes in some takedowns, throws volume, and gets the job done there over Irene Aldana. And up next we got Bryce Mitchell taking on Josh Emmett, and really fun fight here. I mean, kind of a contrast of styles where we got grappler versus striker. Short notice fight too for both these guys. Bryce Mitchell's jumping in without the training camp, but Josh Emmett, he was originally going to fight... who was it that he was going to fight? He was going to fight a guy that was a completely different style than Bryce Mitchell. It's not coming to me right now, but definitely had to make a big change in kind of his game plan and he was going to fight Giga. That's right, Giga Chikadze. So southpaw striker, kicker that's like incredibly fast, and now he's fighting a grappler. So big switch for him, I feel like. And props for Emmett for taking the fight, but I got to go with Bryce Mitchell in this one, man. I feel like even on the feet, he can compete. I think that he's going to be able to land his check hook, his rear cross. I think he's going to get Emmett to be chasing him a little bit. And ultimately, I just think that It's a close fight. I think Bryce is going to have to show more striking. And I do think Bryce is going to be competitive on the feet unless he just gets hit with that death shot from Josh Emmett. Mitchell's going to be the faster fighter. He's going to throw a wider array of attacks on the feet. He's taller, and I think he's going to be kicking, throwing straight punches, front kicks up the middle. And I think he's going to obviously hit some takedowns too. I mean, I think that his grappling is high level, his wrestling is really good. And I think that Emmett, he's hard to take down, so Bryce has to mentally be ready to strike. But I do think if he gets Emmett to the ground, he's going to have a big advantage on the mat. I mean, I think Emmett isn't the greatest grappler, especially off his back. And Emmett's coming off the 2 worst beatings of his career, man. I mean, it's hard to pick him here. He 38 years old. He's coming off taking an extreme amount of punishment. I mean, the guy took so many significant strikes. He got dropped multiple times against Topuria. And he struggled against southpaws as well. I mean, you look at his career with southpaws. He fought Desmond Green. And in that fight, he only landed 28% of his strikes. He lost a decision there. Then he fought Michael Johnson, who he did end up getting a knockout against him, but happened in like the final minute of the fight. And he only had landed 22 significant strikes in 14 minutes and 46 seconds in that fight. He was landing like 25% of his strikes. So I feel like he struggles to land on southpaws. And I think Mitchell can make it hard for Emmett to hit him, get him frustrated, then get him down and kind of dominate on the ground too. So I don't know if he's going to actually finish him. I wouldn't be shocked, but I'll say he wins a decision. And I think Bryce Mitchell is a pretty safe guy this week. I think he's going to get the job done here. And moving on to this next fight, Ian Garry taking on Vincente Luque. And man, I mean, it's more talked about outside the fight, Ian Garry's wife and all this shit than the actual matchup. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think it's a fight that obviously Ian Garry is going to have to be the prediction to win. I mean, maybe all this outside noise is going to get in his head. And Luque is a veteran. You don't know exactly how their sparring sessions went and things like that too. I mean, maybe Luque dropped him or had a big advantage in some certain scenarios where it's going to show in the fight. But obviously, I don't know that. And I just feel like it feels a few years ago, but the pressure that Luque brings, you can kind of maybe pressure the kicker and get inside, get to work, land that left hook, maybe take him down. But you look at his last couple fights, like with Jeff Neal, he got lit up, and then I feel like he was really gun-shy in that fight with RDA. I don't think like he was the same guy on the feet. He didn't have that same fearlessness, pressuring forward, high guard, and trying to take damage to give damage and making it a war. He used a lot of wrestling, and maybe he could go out there and wrestle Ian Garry. I mean, you look at Ian Garry's one loss as an amateur. He fought Andreas Bender, and he got taken down in the clinching a lot in that fight. And but you don't see Luque getting the type of takedowns that Bender was getting in that fight. So I just don't know if he's going to be able to, one, be able to corral him and get him against the fence, and then two, take him down from there. I think both those things are going to be difficult. And while he's trying to do that, Ian Garry's going to be piecing him apart from the outside with the jabs, with the straight punches, with his kicks. And if I'm Ian Garry, I'm going southpaw all day in this fight. I mean, obviously he switches. I think is orthodox based, but southpaw, go southpaw head kick. Obviously look for the straight left hand, and you could really give Luque issues. I mean, Luque's had a lot of issues with southpaws throughout his whole career on the feet, and I think that could be an ace that Ian Garry has here. And I just think Ian Garry's obviously the fresher, younger guy. Luque, to me, is a little bit... He's only 32 years old, but he's just taken a lot of damage. He's been in a lot of wars, and I think it's Ian Garry's time to probably get the win here. And I wouldn't be shocked if he takes Luque out, TKOs him. So I'm going to go with Ian Garry in this one. But, I mean, Luque has a chance, puncher's chance, obviously. We've seen Ian Garry get rocked in multiple fights. So Luque is obviously the best fighter he's ever fought. We're going to see what happens. But got to lean towards Ian Garry for sure there. And up next year, we got a fight that Man, I'm not going to spend time breaking this one down, really. If you've been watching the channel, y'all know, like, there's only, like, a couple guys that I got, like, a big bias with where I'm not going to give a fair prediction. And Tony Ferguson's one of those guys. So, I mean, I'm not going to really... You shouldn't listen to my prediction in this fight at all. Like, I'm not going to predict Paddy. I'm never going to predict Paddy to win. So, all I'm going to say is I want to hear David Goggins, the shit he's screaming during in between rounds and all that, or in the rounds. I want to hear that. I think it'll be funny. And man, I don't know. I mean, hopefully Tony goes in there, does well, gets the job done, but no real prediction for that one. I'll just say Tony wins via KO in the first 3 seconds. And up next here, we got Stephen Thompson taking on Shavkat Rakhmonov, and you know, another fight kind of similar to the last one, where you know what they're doing. They're kind of throwing Wonder Boy to the wolves here, trying to build Shavkat off Wonder Boy. And then, what do you guys think? Put it down in the comments. I mean, if Shavkat goes out there and destroys Wonder Boy, you think he passes up Bilal Muhammad and gets a title shot? Because I kind of think that's what's going to happen, honestly. I feel like, you know, you're looking at Stephen Wonder Boy Thompson. He hasn't fought in over a year at this point. Sitting out for that long when you're 40 years old, I think is something significant. And he's been doing it the last 2 years. I mean, you look at it right there. He fought 12-17 2021, 12-2 2022, and now he's fighting 12-16 2023. So it's like he's fighting one time a year at this point. And I just feel like Shavkat's going to get him down and submit him, man. I just don't think there's a lot to say about this fight. I think he's going to pressure through his striking. I think obviously Wonder Boy is not as fast and dangerous as he used to be. He's going to get him in the clinch. He's going to land hellacious shots there. He's going to be able to eventually probably get him tired, get him down, and finish him however he wants to. So I just feel like Shavkat's on that other level. I mean, maybe we'll see Wonder Boy land a crazy technique and knock him out. He's one of those fighters that always has that possibility just because how crisp and sharp he is with certain techniques like spinning attacks, head kicks, knees, and things like that. But that's obviously a very, very low percentage outcome of what's going to happen in this fight. And I think what's more than likely going to happen is what I said, is Shavkat goes in there, gets him tired, gets him to the ground, and submits him. So Wonder Boy, you know, he had that fight with Ian Garry. Was it Ian Garry? Or he had a fight with someone where, no, it was Pereira, where he didn't take the fight. And then I think he declined like a short notice fight. So UFC obviously maybe got annoyed with that, and now they want him to fight this guy right here, Shavkat Rakhmonov. So not much to say, but I think Shavkat's going to win inside the distance in that fight, and I think he's probably my most confident pick on the card. And in the co-main event here, we got Alexandre Pantoja taking on Brandon Royval. Obviously, this is going to be for the UFC flyweight title. It's a rematch as well of a fight that happened in 2021 where Alexandre Pantoja submitted Brandon Royval in the second round. And Pantoja, man, his last fight was amazing. I was there live for that fight. It was one of the best fights I've seen live. Definitely him and Brandon Moreno just put on an absolute war. And anytime Brandon Royval goes in there, win or lose, he's usually getting a highlight reel finish, or it's a really fun fight. So the guys all action all the time, and their first fight was awesome. So I don't expect anything less here. And how these guys matched up the first time, I mean, I saw a lot of people say they thought Pantoja was breaking in that fight, but I understand what they're saying. I mean, he definitely looked like he was getting sloppy and tired, but he looked exactly the same in certain points of the Brandon Moreno fight too. I mean, it just seems like that's kind of how he looks at certain points in the fight, and then you'll get second wins and come back. And so I'm not too worried about him getting extremely tired. Like, that Moreno fight was at a super high pace, and if he didn't backpack him in that fifth round, though, I mean, maybe it could have been different, but he was able to get the job done, and he really pushed a high pace, and he ended up winning the rounds late that won him the title. So you look at Brandon Royval, and obviously his path to victory, at least in my opinion, throwing punches and bunches, combinations, trying to keep Pantoja at the end of his reach and then time him with a knee or some crazy strike and get the knockout. And when he gets taken down, get right back up, push a crazy pace, try to get Pantoja tired. And Pantoja's going to be doing the same thing. I mean, you saw in the first fight that in terms of power, with the hands at least, I mean, obviously Royval has power with all those crazy spinning attacks, the knees, and those type of strikes that he can land. But pure hands, I mean, Royval's usually throwing kind of like touching punches, and then you'll throw a stinging one, like jab, 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 then you'll throw a big straight, and he's always switching stances and kind of being creative, but he doesn't have that same pop and kind of just oomph on his shots like Pantoja. Pantoja was able to, when he wanted to, pressure forward with the combination and really land clean on Royval. Like a couple times he was landing that jab or that straight, and he was landing it so clean that Royval was thinking he was getting poked in the eyes, but it wasn't a poke. It was just a great punch, and he was taking the back easily. One thing that Pantoja was doing a really good job of is he was noticing when Royval was going to switch stance in the pocket or when they were in closer kind of range to each other, and he was taking the back off that over and over like he did in the first and the second round, and then second round he ended up submitting him. So I do think when they're at range, Royval's a big advantage. Like you could tell Pantoja was uncomfortable with the distance and just the amount of volume of strikes that Royval was throwing. But when Pantoja wanted to close the distance to throw power, he was connecting heavily on every punch, and Royval was walking right through him, but he was landing when he wanted to, and he was able to get the takedowns when he wanted to, and I just don't know how that's going to change here. I mean, I am a little bit worried, like, same thing happens in other sports too, man. It's like you could have a championship hangover type of thing, or it's like a lot of guys, they win the belt. For their next fight, they might maybe not train as hard or whatever it is. They don't have the same hunger. They don't have the same will to win during the fight. And the other guy, obviously, Brandon Royval, he's putting 110% into his first title opportunity. So you can kind of get caught and lose that way. But Pantoja, to me, is a guy that it took him so long to get the belt that I think he's not going to want to lose it that quickly. He's fighting another guy that he's beaten in the past, and seems like whenever you give him a guy that he's already beaten, he's able to beat him again. Hence the fact that he beat Brandon Moreno, 3 times in a row. So I'm going to say Pantoja is able to get another submission with the rear naked choke. I think his back takes are phenomenal. I mean, the guy's ability to pressure forward, throw a flurry, get to the back, take the back so fast is like just absolutely amazing. And Royval's an awesome scrambler. The guy, if he could make it a wild fight, keep getting back up to his feet, he could end up landing something crazy on Pantoja and taking the belt. I think it's it's a fight where if you bet on Royval, I don't think you're crazy, but I just think it's a bad matchup for Royval at the end of the day. I mean, you saw even in his fight with Rogerio Bontorin, with Tim Elliott, he's getting dominated in these fights until he can find the finish or win in kind of a fugazi decision like with Bontorin, where I thought he clearly lost. But, ultimately I just think Pantoja is the antidote with the pressure, with the ability to get the takedown. I think that his cardio issues are kind of a little unfounded, that some people say he has cardio issues. I think that that's not true. I just think he has bad body languages at certain portions of fights because he's pushing such a crazy pace. But then since he's in such good shape, if he can last to the end of the round, which he's never been finished in his career, he can come right back and recover. And I think for a guy to beat Pantoja, it's going to be someone that could nullify his grappling and then have big power on the feet too. And I just don't think that Royval's going to nullify the grappling like a guy like Askar Askarov and get him tired by getting on top of him. And I don't think that he has the power necessarily with the hands unless he can land some crazy shot like you've seen Royval do in the past to knock Pantoja out to get him to really respect him. So I'm going to say Pantoja is able to defend his belt, get the win, and get another submission victory over Brandon Royval. And finally, we got the main event here. Welterweight title fight between Leon Rocky Edwards and Colby Chaos Covington. And man, I mean, this is a fight that there's a lot of people that have differentiating opinions I'm seeing. And a lot of people are really heavy on Leon Edwards, man. And I'm kind of surprised by that. This fight, I'm not saying like don't flame me. I'm not saying that Colby Covington is John Jones. I'm not saying that at all. But when John Jones fought Ciryl Gane, right? I remember before that fight, there was a lot of people, like sharp people that I respect, and they were making me nervous because I was super confident that John Jones was gonna kill that guy, and but there was a lot of people that were very confident in Ciryl. So I'm getting that same kind of vibe here, man. Like a lot of people that I respect, they're on Leon Edwards, but I think Colby should dominate this fight, man. I mean, I get the age factor, and that's the one thing that if this fight was like a couple years ago, I'd be extremely confident, like 8 out of 10 times Colby would win the fight. But now that he's 35 years old, there's a little bit of a wrinkle into it, but it's not like Colby has taken a lot of damage. I mean, the guy is not fighting that often. Like, he is out there and doesn't fight too much, and he hasn't taken a ton of damage. So I think that he's going to be sharp. He's going to have been sitting there looking and ready to train for one guy for like a year and a half. You don't exactly know some of the improvements he's going to make. And just purely matchup wise, I think it's a bad matchup for Leon Edwards and a great matchup for Colby Covington. I mean, you just look at it from the southpaw to southpaw dynamic. Look at how Leon Edwards is done against certain southpaws in the UFC, and granted, he's beaten the majority of the southpaws that he's fought, but he fought Claudio Silva. This was in 2014, so hard to kind of put too much merit into the fight, but he got taken down, held down. He got beat by a southpaw grappler that's, not even close to Colby's level, but since then he has, leveled up extremely, especially in the wrestling. So that's why I said you can't really talk about that fight, but fought Bryan Barberena, a guy that I don't think anyone's going to say he has heavy hands. I mean, he's a warrior. He goes out there, he goes to war in every fight, throws super crazy volume, and in the clinch, he can land butchering elbows, knees, and he can finish you that way. But most of the time, he's a decision fighter, and his hands have never been powerful. And the guy dropped Leon Edwards, hurt him badly, and almost finished him. I mean, he had him rocked pretty bad. And then you look at his fight with RDA. It was a close fight. Leon used a lot of wrestling in that fight. The striking, Leon was landing clean a lot and doing really well himself. But I do feel like RDA also had a ton of moments in that fight too. And then you look at his fight with Nate Diaz. I mean, another guy that people say he has no power, and Nate was clowning that fight. It was like a stupid fight. But in the 5th round, the guy rocks him bad, almost finishes him. So it's like, that's twice against non-punchers where you see Leon get rocked badly against a southpaw. And you look at Leon against these southpaw fighters, you're watching the fights, he's getting hit clean as hell with these boxing combinations, man. It's like he doesn't see these punches or something. Like, I don't get it. Like, he's getting hit really clean right on the button sometimes. And obviously, he's really slick himself, and especially in the RDA fight, he was really pinging RDA with really nice jabs, straight punches, elbows. The elbows in the RDA fight were nasty. I think he's going to be looking for a lot of elbows in this Colby fight, and that's going to be the most dangerous weapon that Colby has to deal with. But his kicks are pretty much nullified when you're fighting southpaw versus southpaw. Like, he doesn't throw a lot of kicks, and when he does throw kicks, he's switching stance. So I think that's a big tell. Like, Colby is going to be able to negate, I think, 90% of the kicks. Like, whereas with Kamaru, where it was the open stance or southpaw versus orthodox stance, those kicks were a lot more readily available. And Colby is a different type of guy than Kamaru, man. Like, I don't think people like Kamaru. He's an awesome wrestler, and he really pushed the pace. The first fight, he wrestled the shit out, or the second fight, he wrestled Leon easily, took him down at will, really, and then ended up getting caught, obviously, at the very end of the fight. But Colby's going to push a way harder wrestling pace. You look at Colby versus southpaws to himself. Like, I was talking about Leon's having bad fights versus southpaws. You look at Colby versus southpaws. The guy is 5-0 versus southpaws. He's gotten 37 takedowns. He had one fight with Damian Maia where he didn't even attempt a takedown. So in 4 fights against southpaws, he's gotten 37 takedowns. That's like 9 takedowns a fight. And majority of those were 3-round fights. And you look at his other fights, like when he's fighting non-southpaws, he only averages like 3 takedowns per fight. So that's 10 fights versus 5 fights, but 5 fights is a pretty big sample size. And the guy's just dominating these guys with his wrestling in those fights. I feel like southpaw to southpaw gives him the entries a lot easier. He can wrestle, and he doesn't even have to be that effective with the wrestling here. I mean, he could just stuff him against the cage, hold him, eventually start getting him down, get him tired. That fight in the UK with Leon and Kamaru too, I mean, that was, 6 months after Kamaru just had got knocked out brutally, and he gassed out. I mean, he gassed out. He went to the UK. It was perfect scenario for Leon to get the victory. Now Leon, he was kind of trying to dodge this fight, didn't want to take the fight with Colby. He's having to come back to the U.S., where the last time he came to the U.S., he fought Usman, and he had a really shit performance before he ended up getting that knockout heard around the world. And I just think people are I don't think Leon's going to catch him with a one punch, knock him out 1-2, KO him. And Colby's going to be in constant forward pressure. I think he's going to negate a lot of the kicks with the stance and with the pressure in general, just shooting on him a lot. And I think the striking is going to be a lot more competitive than people think. I think Colby, during this whole time off, you don't think he's improved his striking at all? I think that's hard to believe. And you look at him striking these other guys, that people say is bad striking, but he boxed up Masvidal, boxed him up on the feet. Him and Usman in the second fight, it was really competitive. So I don't agree with the narrative that Leon is just outclassing him in the stand-up either, especially when you have to respect the takedown too. So Colby, I think, can land clean shots on the feet, especially with the southpaw dynamic, where I think Leon is a lot more hittable versus southpaws than versus orthodox fighters. Colby's going to be putting way more volume out there. Colby has a big wrestling advantage. I get Leon improved his wrestling, but I don't think he's going to take down Colby like he did Usman with the surprise takedown. I mean, Colby's going to know he's going to try to hit that body lock. And also, I just feel like Colby's going to push a way higher wrestling pace than Usman. Usman was content to strike in that third fight with him and Leon. He was content to strike in that fight for the majority of the fight. Colby is not going to do that. Even though Leon has gotten good with his takedown defense against the cage, I don't think it's going to be enough, man. I think Colby Covington's going to come back. He's going to look good, look like the usual Colby. And I think in general, he's just a bad matchup for Leon Edwards. I think there's a reason why Leon didn't want to take this fight, and I don't think it's because he didn't think Colby deserved it. I think that's kind of a stupid thing. This is the fight where he can make the most money. Like Colby and him, if he fights Bilal, what, are they going to sell 17 pay-per-views? Obviously this is the fight he would have wanted if he was confident in winning it 100%. But I think he knows it's a hard fight. He knows the dude's going to shit-talk him and trash on him. And it's man, he's probably going to lose. So I think Colby Covington's going to get the win here. Maybe I'll be proven stupid or whatever, but Colby should be the favorite in this fight, honestly, in my opinion. But there you go, guys. That's the full card breakdown and predictions for UFC 296. Hopefully you enjoyed this breakdown and predictions video. As far as my most confident pick goes, I'm going to go with Shavkat Rakhmonov. For parlay of the week, it's kind of hard for me to give a parlay, but I'll just say that I'll go with my pick as Cody Durden as my official prediction for a just pure pick. So give me Cody Durden for kind of the play of the week. So thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Go to patreon.com/MPredictionGuru if you want to get access to my bets for this card, for Cage Warriors, for KSW, for the rest of the cards for the rest of the year. And I'll talk to you guys later. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, and see you guys later. And my bad, guys. I don't know what I was doing. I forgot to put this fight up here. I forgot to do this one. So Cody Durden taking on Tagir Ulanbekov. Great fight. I'm really interested in this fight. Honestly, I feel like this is one of the more underrated fights on the entire card. Two guys that I think could challenge some of the better guys in the division. And you look at Ulanbekov, he hasn't fought in a while. He hasn't fought in over a year. The last time we saw him was in last November, where he submitted Nate Maness in the first round. So I don't know exactly why Ulanbekov has taken this long layoff, but in general, Ulanbekov has a history of pulling out of fights. I mean, you look at since 2020, he's withdrawn from 6 fights. So maybe he's just not that trustworthy of a guy when it comes to actually showing up. But 3-1 in the promotion, 32 years old, so I feel like definitely needs to get going now. But he's beaten some good guys. I mean, he beat Bruno Silva, he beat Alonzo, beat Nate Maness. So if he can beat Cody Durden, I think he'll deserve a top 10 guy. Cody Durden, he's come the hard way in the UFC also. I mean, came in against Chris Gutierrez at 135. And he was only 1-2 his first 2 fights, but he's clawed his way back. He went to American Top Team. He quit his job, took MMA full time, and in 2023 he's 2-0, hasn't lost in a year and a half, and is on a 3-fight winning streak. So this win is going to kind of establish Durden if he can get the win as one of the better guys in the weight class. And you look at Karol Ulanbekov, he's a tall, long, and lanky fighter for the weight. He has a 3-inch reach advantage over Cody Durden, and he likes to fight behind the jab, and then when fighters get aggressive, close the distance, he'll take them down. He brings the pressure. He likes to back fighters up with his long punches, and Ulanbekov has a decent straight right hand. Overall, he's clean. He's accurate as a puncher. Ulanbekov throws some rear round kicks to the body, to the head. His defense on the feet, to me, isn't great. He can get away with it, though, because of his length, his wrestling threat. He has a good ability to control distance, but keeps his chin right in the air. He can get dropped. He's also susceptible to low kicks, and his composure is elite, so he's hard to finish, and he recovers quickly. He's never been finished, but we have seen him obviously be hurt, and he's shown no power. I mean, the guy has 0 knockouts in his whole career, but he is a great wrestler, good body locks. He could push fighters against the cage, take them down from there. On top, he has good control. He can be a little inactive, so that's an issue, but he has good back takes, and he can't be taken down as well, though. I mean, we saw Bruno Silva hit some double legs on him. We saw Tim Elliott hit several takedowns, and Karol Ulanbekov's front chokes are very dangerous, so Cody Durden needs to be very aware of that. Ulanbekov has 7 submission wins. Cardio for Ulanbekov is on point. He can dig deep in close fights, but 32 years old, having not fought in over a year, there could be some ring rust, some digression we see, or regression. And you look at Cody Durden, he's an underrated striker in my opinion. He's improved his composure and his defense, plus he's getting better with his hands. Southpaw, so that's a different look, and Durden's always wrestling, so fighters have to respect when he level changes, and then he'll bounce in and out. He's really fast, big crosses, big overhands, big uppercuts. He's improved his jab. He has alright kicks, and America Top Team is notorious for calf kicks, so I think in this matchup, those are going to be there for him against Ulanbekov. And Durden has power for this weight class. I think he's going to have a big power advantage. He's aggressive, and he was looking really good with his pullback counter cross in his last fight. He landed some sick elbows, and I feel like he's been fighting superior and more dangerous strikers than Karol Ulanbekov and beating them on the feet. So I think that the striking may be somewhat competitive, but Durden will just be more powerful, and I think the leg kicks are going to be a difference too. And Cody Durden is an elite wrestler. He has extremely fast level changes. He has a plethora of different finishes. He could chain wrestle. He's very gritty. When he gets on top, he's aggressive with his ground pound. He has great back takes, good back control. He could hit mat returns, tire guys out just by wearing them like a blanket. 29 takedowns in 8 UFC fights. His last 3 fights alone, he has 19 takedowns, and he's only been taken out twice. So just extremely good there. And Durden's one issue has been his submission defense. You look at his UFC losses, he got submitted in both of them. He had an extremely close call. He was close to being submitted against Jake Hadley. But he's a dog, though. I mean, he proved that in his last fight. Unless you have him absolutely dead to rights, you won't submit him. And I think in this fight, Durden should showcase his striking. You know, sprawl and brawl. I do think he can get takedowns too, but he just has to be super careful with leaving his neck out there. And cardio for Durden is extremely good. He could push an elite pace. I think Cody Durden has a better striking, is bigger, more physical. He's probably the better wrestler too. As long as he avoids getting caught in a choke, I see him winning the fight by doing more damage, being more of a dog. And if Ulanbekov wins, I think it's going to be through him catching that guillotine that he hit on Nate Maness. So I'm going to predict Durden to win via decision. I just think he's the better fighter here and should get the job done.